again, everybody. Long time no see. Hopefully, everyone had a nice break. I was telling Sinner after I ended the last live, I don't know how people stay live for hours on end. Like, my back was hurting, my eyes were hurting. I'm just like, I need to do something than just sit at my desk. Like, it's too much. So during this little break, I did get some vacuuming done. So it wasn't time wasted. Thanks everybody for those of you who are back. Cash, thanks for being back. I would appreciate you hitting the like again. Yes. Yeah, I am getting a short together just as a recap of today. There's 2 clips that I already have in mind, and then I am going to clip the judge sentencing him. But yeah, after this, I mean, he can kick rocks for all I care. I agree, SoFlo. I am ready too. And he, the fact that he said he was going to speak at the the second part of the sentencing, like the second time we were here, and then he's like, nah. It's like, again, just playing games as always. Hey Karma, how are you? Ava, thanks for coming back. Hey, we don't like you, Betty. Good to see you. Bridget, thanks for coming back. So I am watching the court. Actually, give me 1 second. I forgot to put my phone next to me so that I can watch things. I do believe I found the next trial that I want to cover, but I'm going to hold off on that for now because I have to look into it more to see if it's definitely something. We don't want to hear me again. But I have to look into it more just to see if it's, definitely something I want to cover. No, I get it, Cash. I mean, even like I said before, with a lot of the creators covering Wade now, they're glorifying him. It's gross because I think of, hearing the testimony during trial and knowing exactly what this guy did. I don't even understand it. Hey, Miss Blue, thanks for listening. Hopefully the packing isn't too bad. Oh, really? We don't like you, Betty? That's probably a good thing. He is a monster, in my opinion. So I did find this article that I want to read just quickly. This was from a juror who was a part of this case. Let me make this bigger. Just make myself small. So this is from Newsweek. And the title was Wade Wilson juror breaks silence on trial. Things, quote, you can never unsee. And this was updated yesterday. And I did try to find the local news station was going to interview one of the jurors at the noon newscast, but they have not posted it yet. So I wasn't able to get that for now. So it says a juror in Wade Wilson's double murder trial has spoken out for the first time since he was convicted on June 12th of killing the Florida women. The woman, who only wanted to be identified as Juror 87, spoke to Wink News about sitting just feet from Wilson, 30, who now faces the death penalty, as the jury heard gruesome details about how he killed Christine Melton, 35, and Diane Ruiz, 43, within hours of each other on October 7th, 2019. There are certain images that we had to see during this trial that you can never unsee, she told the outlet. And there is Mr. Wilson himself. Wilson met Melton at a live music bar and went home with her on October 6, 2019. The next day, he strangled her to death in her Cape Coral home where her body was discovered. Ruiz was a bartender and walking to work at a nearby bar. She worked at the Moose Lodge. about a mile or so from her home, when Wilson approached her asking for directions in a car he stole from Melton's home. Ruiz got in the car where Wilson strangled her and, quote, ran her over until she looked like spaghetti, end quote. Wilson's dad said his son admitted during his testimony. Ruiz's body was found on October 10th in a field behind a Sam's Club. And with that statement, in the jail calls, one of the jail calls with his father, his dad talks to him about Diane, and Wade admits a lot. He talks about it like he's proud of what he did. So this is why, in my opinion, he needs to be sentenced to death. I mean, there were times where, he and I would lock eyes and just stare at each other. The juror said about being in the same room with Wilson. There's definitely a very noticeable weight in the room when you're sitting with somebody that did the horrific things that he did. And there is a photo of Christine Melton is on the left, Diane Ruiz is on the right. And this was him when he was arrested, so he was much thinner without the facial tattoos. Oops. Florida law requires at least 8 jurors to vote for the death penalty. 10 out of the 12 jurors at the Lee County Courthouse in Fort Myers voted for the death penalty last week for Ruiz's murder. 9 out of 12 jurors voted the same for Melton's. You kind of have this really big sense of responsibility, Juror 87 told Wink News, about playing a role in Wilson's fate and putting, any of your personal feelings aside and just being able to focus on facts. While determining Wilson's guilt was easy, the woman said recommending a punishment was not as simple. We were very lucky to get the group of people that we did. We were with such a wonderful group of people that everyone's opinions were heard. The juror said she has faith in the justice system and was grateful to be part of the trial. However, she acknowledges it was not an easy process for the victims' loved ones. I think the hardest part every day was seeing the families there and seeing how they've been impacted by their losses. I only had to put a month into this. They had to put in 5 years, and they're never going to get their loved ones back. So I felt really honored to be able to give them some sort of justice. Wilson was originally set to be sentenced on July 23rd, but his lawyers have argued that the doctors who will testify need more time. We learned later it's because the defense never gave the doctors the information that was required, even though they were approved back in April. Therefore, Wilson is now expected to be sentenced on August 27th, which is what we are currently waiting to start. So that I thought was really interesting because, like the juror said, the guilt, saying somebody's guilty or not guilty based on the weight of the evidence I would feel is easier because you're looking at the evidence. Does this prove that this man did this? For me, it would have been the DNA. His DNA was found all over the clothing that he used to not only tie together, but also wrap Christine Melton in. He stole her car. He had her phone. There was blood from Diane Ruiz in his car. Well, in Christine's car that he stole. Both cell phones of Christine and Diane were in the car that was stolen. The preponderance of evidence tells me that this guy did it. And looking at the penalty phase, should he be recommended for death or not? This is one thing that I'm very happy that Florida changed, because when Nicholas Cruz, who was the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooter, when he was in his penalty phase, because he pled guilty, the jury had to decide whether he had life in prison or death. Back when he was on trial, it had to be unanimous. All 12 jurors had to be together to recommend death. And in his case, there was one juror who believed he should get life in prison. So Nicholas Cruz is now serving a life sentence. This law changed. So now only 8 of 12, so 75% of the jurors, not 75%, what am I talking about? 67% of the jurors need to vote for death. So what do you mean all verdicts? Yeah, I agree, Karma. It was sad, especially when Diane's son testified. Hey, Shaby, thanks for being here. Yeah, 4:02, the judge is late. Well, now it's 4:06. I'm a little bit behind in chat. Hey, Lindsay, thanks for coming back. Let me just see if I missed anything else. Yes, Chopper, that is true. It usually has to be unanimous, but Florida changed it, and I believe, actually, let me look it up before I misspeak. When did... ...2023. So April 2023. So here's what's interesting to me. If Wade Wilson had actually gone to trial sooner, because again, it's been 5 years. Give me 1 second. And some of that is no fault of his own. His previous counsel passed away unexpectedly. So he had to have new defense attorneys assigned. But again, 5 years is a long time. So if Wade Wilson had been convicted a year and a half ago, not even, he would have gotten life in prison because not all 12 jurors agreed to the death penalty. But because it is now, he is now up for the death penalty. So that's actually interesting to me now that I see the date that it changed. Nope, Jingles, you're not late. We're still waiting. Unless I have this. Oh, shoot. It could have been me. Nope, live. We're still on the camera. Okay, because sometimes, for some reason, sometimes this will pause the feed, and I don't know why. Ava, I don't believe so. I don't believe he is able to speak at the actual sentencing based on what the judge said in the last part. Yes, and thank you, Sinner. 9-3 and 10-2 votes for each of the victims. Oh, shoot, and I think I closed that. Oh, no, I closed that page. I thought it was 8-4 and 9-3. I just wanted to double check. I know, 10-12 and 9-12. So 8-12, 9-12. So I was wrong. Oh no, we're both wrong. Because what did I just say? 10-2, which is half right. To 12. So 8-12, 10-12. Either way, he was recommended to get death. And I agree with that. Chopper, that is true, but I feel usually the question they ask is just based on, the voir dire that I've watched. They'll say, if the death penalty is on the table, would you be able to reasonably consider it? Something like that. I would hope that people wouldn't lie about it, but I mean, I would hope people would be honest. So Jingles, his parents wrote a letter. His parents sent a letter to the court to be read, and his sister had written a letter during the penalty phase. And I don't fault his parents. What I've read and heard about his adoptive parents is that they are good people. His sisters are both successful, and he just made Wade just made really bad decisions. Really bad decisions. Oh no, they had a fire alarm in the courthouse? Oh my goodness. Well, that would explain why they're late. I mean, if that isn't the universe. That's crazy that it would happen right when it was time to sentence this guy. Let's see what the comments are saying. Not that I want to see some of the comments, but I'm curious. Oh yeah, somebody said, who said it was a fire alarm? People are Somebody said it's not like he dies today. OMG, y'all are ridiculous. I agree with this person. Wade isn't going home. Some people in this chat are nuts. A lot of people speaking different languages. I'm really surprised. Yes, and Haunted Ham, I completely agree with. Justice for Christine and Diane and their families. F. Wade, Long John Wilson. Oh my gosh. So many people with speaking different languages. I'm really surprised. All right, so we will continue to just hang out. Oh, I didn't even notice the light flashing, reflecting off the ceiling light. I wasn't even paying attention. All right, so if you're against death penalty, then vote for someone to take it off the table. But until then, you have to follow the law. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, he'll have a lot of appeals. I know, Sinner, right? Can this just be over already? Oh, blue light flashing. Yeah, I didn't even notice it. I mean, in the meantime, let me see if I can find that other, if they have that. The families in court, that I would assume so. I know at the last hearing, or the last part of the hearing, I should say, the judge had asked the prosecution if the families would want to provide victim impact statements before he gave his sentence. And the prosecution said no. The families would like you to consider their statements from trial. So, which I can understand. I wouldn't want to go through that again, especially with this Yahoo. Cash, what do you mean? Were they through trial? Oh, the families? Yes. I don't know if every day during the trial, but during the verdict, yes, they were in court. I would have to go back and look at my live streams, but the verdict, the families were definitely in court. I remember them being shown. All right. I mean, how often do fire alarms go off in a courthouse? I mean, it makes you wonder, is someone going to jail for pulling the fire alarm? Oh, hey, Bridget. Cool. Hopefully your garden is good. Not having the death penalty is a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper because there's a lot less appeals that you can file. Hey, Gigi, how are you? Yeah, I don't know if someone pulled the alarm. I'm just saying, like, how often does the fire alarm go off in courthouses? I'm guessing not very often. All right, so I don't see that. So I found this is actually from Court TV. They put it on Facebook just to kind of show this is what annoyed me with Wade while we're waiting. Did I pause? How do I make this bigger? Because it's on Facebook. Maybe I can't make it bigger. Oh, yes, I can. Okay.
Just like during any of the other phases of, well, let me just finish.
Pause, please. Okay, why did this? Okay, oh, it took it. What is that? Why can't I? Oh, there we go. Okay, so this was what annoyed me. I mean, he does what he wants, but this is just a short clip where he said he was going to talk later, and then, of course, he didn't.
If you want to address the court, I would permit you to do that. Obviously, everything's recorded, but you would have that opportunity if you wish. No one can prevent you from addressing the court if you wish to, and no one can make you address the court if you don't want to. So it is a decision that's solely left up to you if you want to address the court or not.
Not today. Later, when I come back, I will. Today, okay. No, I won't.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Wait a minute.
That's where I saw him last, like right there, literally 2 seconds.
So he had said today, no. When I come back later, yes. Does he? I don't understand. Does he not realize that he's not going to? Oops, wrong one. Like he's not going to be back after today? I don't know. I didn't realize he said that the first time. He said, no, not today. I will when I come back. Yeah, his body language, he's just, I don't know, arrogant. And let's see. I don't want to show too much stuff because as soon as we get into something else, it's probably going to come back. All right, let's see. This one newspaper in Florida has live updates. Let's see. Oh, yep. So here it says courthouse alarm delaying sentencing, gallery kept in seats. That's interesting. So here it says a short delay is happening in the scheduled start of Wade Wilson's sentencing for the deaths of 2 Cape Coral women. An alarm went off in the courtroom about 3:58 p.m. with the bailiffs keeping the gallery in their seats. The judge has not convened court, where he will announce if he gives Wilson a capital punishment instead of life in prison. Tuesday morning, a Spencer hearing allowed the defense to present additional evidence to support the sentence. The judge resumed court about 2 p.m. before ending the hearing, and then he'd announce the decision about 4 p.m. Okay, so we're just waiting for... That's interesting that they kept the gallery in their seats. That would tell me they knew it wasn't serious. I'm not sure. Hi, Strutter. How are you? Shaby, it costs more because they have more appeals. There are more appeals in the process when someone is issued death than when they are issued life in prison. Nah, I don't think a threat. I think, I don't know. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. Oh, interesting, Ava. The blue flashing alarm is security, which, I mean, would... Oh, so it didn't say fire alarm. It said alarm. I just realized the headline said courthouse alarm. It didn't say fire alarm. Interesting. Hey, Pookie, thanks for coming back. Road Rash, good to see you. When it says short delay, I'm not sure how short it will be, but see if they have anything else on here. And just to recap the hearing earlier with the testimony, Prosecutor Gardner stressed that there was no history of a brain injury. He has an ability to recount events he wants. Thompson concluded a Spencer hearing allows the defendant's lawyers to present additional evidence to the judge before a sentence is entered.
State's President, Defense Counsel, and the defendant are all
Be
present.
quiet.
We're here for sentencing. Was there anything else that the court needed to address prior to sentencing?
No.
All right. So I have considered all of the testimony and evidence, arguments of counsel, applicable case law, and statutes. I have prepared a written sentencing order, which I'll file contemporaneously with the pronouncement of the sentence here today. I also have copies for the state and defense, which I'll hand out once I conclude. So in the state of Florida versus Wade Stephen Wilson, case number 19 CF 568, the court will read aloud the portion of the sentencing order related to the sentencing circumstances and proportionality. In evaluating the aggravating and mitigating factors, the court does not engage in a mere counting procedure, but instead makes a reasoned judgment based on the totality of the circumstances. In reaching this decision, the court is mindful that because death is a unique punishment in its finality, its application is reserved only for those cases where the most aggravating and least mitigating circumstances exist. The law never requires the imposition of a death sentence. In this case, the totality of the circumstances indicates the defendant, with premeditation, beat and strangled Christine Melton in her home before stealing her vehicle and driving to meet his girlfriend, Melissa Montanez. After Montanez refused to get into the car with him, the defendant battered her in broad daylight. The defendant told law enforcement, when Ms. Montanez managed to flee from the defendant, he fled the scene and drove back to Cape Coral, where he decided that he would murder another person. He saw Diane Ruiz walking to work and pulled over, pretending to ask for directions. She got into the car to provide directions, but the defendant strangled her when she tried to exit. He then drove to an empty lot, strangling her into unconsciousness at least one additional time on the way there. When she tried to flee from the car, he drove over her at least one time, inflicting mortal injuries to her spine, ribs, and neck. The evidence showed that both murders were heinous, atrocious, and cruel, and that the second murder was cold, calculated, and premeditated. The defendant inflicted serious physical and emotional pain to the victims. Moreover, the defendant committed the murders while on probation for prior felony convictions, and he committed 2 first-degree murders contemporaneously with each other and with grand theft of motor vehicle, battery, and burglary of a dwelling. There were no statutory mitigating circumstances that were established, but the court considered the non-statutory mitigating circumstances presented by the defendant. Out of 13 enumerated non-statutory mitigating factors, the court found that 10 had been established. Out of those established, 6 were given little weight. The totality of the mitigating circumstances indicates that the defendant suffers from drug use from a young age, along with undiagnosed and untreated mental health issues of some kind. He felt abandoned by his biological parents, but had a devoted adoptive family who raised him in a supportive and loving environment. Defendant did not resist law enforcement when arrested and confessed fully to both murders. The court has further considered giving great weight to the advisory verdict of the jury, who recommended that the death penalty be imposed by a vote of 9-3 on count 1 for the murder of Christine Melton and a vote of 10-2 on count 4 for the murder of Diane Ruiz. The court recognizes that there is no mathematical formula for considering the aggravating and mitigating factors. It is not enough to weigh the number of aggravators against the number of mitigators. The court carefully considered the nature and quality of each aggravator and mitigator. Having reviewed all of the aggravating factors proven beyond a reasonable doubt and all of the mitigating circumstances reasonably established by the evidence, the court finds that the aggravating factors greatly outweigh mitigating circumstances. Given the facts of the case, nothing in defendant's background or mental state would suggest that a death sentence is inappropriate. This court's review of other reported capital cases has led the court to conclude that the death penalty is not disproportionate in this case. Under the totality of the circumstances and evidence, the court finds no basis to override the jury's verdict. The totality of the circumstances warrants that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced to death for each count of first-degree murder. Accordingly, it is ordered and adjudged that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced as follows. Count 1, first-degree murder of Christine Melton. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death. Count 2, grand theft of a motor vehicle. The defendant is sentenced to 5 years imprisonment in the Florida Department of Corrections. Count 3, battery. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 364 days in the Lee County Jail. Count 4, first-degree murder of Diane Ruiz. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death. Count 5, the burglary of a dwelling. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 15 years imprisonment in the Florida Department of Corrections. Count 6, petty theft. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 364 days in the Lee County Jail. The defendant is given credit for all time served on this case on all counts. All counts are to run concurrent with each other, meaning at the same time. All statutorily mandated fines, fees, and costs as announced on the record are imposed. and the defendant is committed to the custody of the Department of Corrections for execution of this sentence as provided by law. The defendant is hereby notified that these convictions and sentences are subject to automatic review by the Florida Supreme Court. If he cannot afford an attorney to represent him in any appeal, the court will appoint one for him.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. What the heck just happened? All right, I'm going to back it up a little bit. I don't know what the heck just happened. Sorry about that.
For prior felony convictions, and he committed 2 first-degree murders contemporaneously with each other and with grand theft of motor vehicle, battery, and burglary of a dwelling. There were no statutory mitigating circumstances that were established, but the court considered the non-statutory mitigating circumstances presented by the defendant. Out of 13 enumerated non-statutory mitigating factors, the court found that 10 had been established. Out of those established, 6 were given little weight. The totality of the mitigating circumstances indicates that the defendant suffers from drug use from a young age, along with undiagnosed and untreated mental health issues of some kind. He felt abandoned by his biological parents, but had a devoted adoptive family who raised him in a supportive and loving environment. Defendant did not resist law enforcement when arrested and confessed fully to both murders. The court has further considered giving great weight to the advisory verdict of the jury, who recommended that the death penalty be imposed by a vote of 9-3 on count 1 for the murder of Christine Melton and a vote of 10-2 on count 4 for the murder of Diane Ruiz. The court recognizes that there is no mathematical formula for considering the aggravating and mitigating factors. It is not enough to weigh the number of aggravators against the number of mitigators. The court carefully considered the nature and quality of each aggravator and mitigator. Having reviewed all of the aggravating factors proven beyond a reasonable doubt and all of the mitigating circumstances reasonably established by the evidence, the court finds that the aggravating factors greatly outweigh mitigating circumstances. Given the facts of the case, nothing in defendant's background or mental state would suggest that a death sentence is inappropriate. This court's review of other reported capital cases has led the court to conclude that the death penalty is not disproportionate in this case. Under the totality of the circumstances and evidence, the court finds no basis to override the jury's verdict. The totality of the circumstances warrants that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced to death for each count of first-degree murder. Accordingly, it is ordered and adjudged that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced as follows. Count 1, first-degree murder of Christine Melton. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death. Count 2, grand theft of a motor vehicle. The defendant is sentenced to 5 years imprisonment in the Florida Department of Corrections. Count 3, battery. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 364 days in the Lee County Jail. Count 4, first-degree murder of Diane Ruiz. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death. Count 5, the burglary of a dwelling. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 15 years imprisonment in the Florida Department of Corrections. Count 6, petty theft. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 364 days in the Lee County Jail. The defendant is given credit for all time served on this case on all counts. All counts are to run concurrent with each other, meaning at the same time. All statutorily mandated fines, fees, and costs as announced on the record are imposed, and the defendant is committed to the custody of the Department of Corrections for execution of this sentence as provided by law. The defendant is hereby notified that these convictions and sentences are subject to automatic review by the Florida Supreme Court. If he cannot afford an attorney to represent him in any appeal, the court will appoint one for him. Are there any other matters to present to the court?
The judge, the state would be seeking $17,500 cost of prosecution.
I'm sorry, how much?
$17,500, Judge.
All right. Any objection?
No, sir.
All right. That will be imposed then. Any other terms or conditions?
Absolutely, Judge. We just want to make sure that Mr. Wilson has absolutely no contact with the victim's family.
There'll be no contact ordered with any of the victim's family members and anything else.
Thank you.
All right.
Judge, I understand he has other cases pending here elsewhere. Wilson asked the court within whatever authority you have to get him to death row as soon as possible.
Okay. Well, in relation to those other cases, I know we have cases pending here in the circuit. Today is not the day to handle those. I would maybe put those, I could do it as early as September 16th. I believe that's Monday morning.
That's Malcolm's case. Yes, Your Honor. Malcolm Dowling from Mr. Wade Wilson. September 16th will be fine.
Okay. Well, I think it'd be more appropriate to handle that at a different time. So let's do that September 16th then at
Full
9 a.m.
gallery.
for the other cases, which are case numbers.
20 CF 16591 and 23 CF 15499.
Okay. And we have court on 16th, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Judge, if I may, he also has a VOP warrant out of Broward County, Palm Beach County. I'm going to get in touch with the authorities over there, but if need be, we'll ask the court to ROR him on that VOP warrant so he can be taken up to.
Well, it's not a motion in front of me today, but if you certainly be able to file whatever you want to file, and
Yes, sir.
I'll consider it.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Not from the state judge.
All right, sir. Then, Mr. Wilson, you will be fingerprinted and remanded to the sheriff's department. It'll be held without bond and for transport to the Department of Corrections when it's appropriate. If nothing else, then we're adjourned.
All right.
And I'll give you your copies.
Full gallery compared to earlier, which, I mean,
Shirley or Mr. Hollander.
very happy that the judge sentenced him to death. He surely deserved it for what he did to Christine and Diane. And what I found I was kind of mad about it. For the battery of Melissa Montanez, I mean, he beat the crap out of her. He was sentenced to 364 days. And I'm wondering if that's because in the grand scheme of charges, it wasn't as severe as murder, but less than a year for almost killing someone. I thought, yeah, so the battery was the same sentence as the petty theft. That really confuses me. Hey Megs, how are you? I hope you're feeling better. All right, so we'll stop sharing that. And he will, once he is processed, etc., he will go to Union Correctional Facility, which is who houses death row inmates, and it is just west of Jacksonville. Yeah, I like Judge Thompson a lot. He's calm, he's composed. He had so much patience with the defense. He's a cool person. Oh, I know, Road Rash. And he was always whispering to that woman, like, if I was a woman, I would not want to be next to him because it's known that he has an issue with women. He doesn't mind them paying for all of his kiosk things, but yep, I agree. Judge is following everything by the book. And that's the way to do it. So there's less room for appeal. Sinner, I wondered that too, because I don't know if the jury did, maybe after, but I didn't realize that those experts had access to jail calls as well, because the prosecution had asked Dr. Coyne not Dr. Coyne, what was the other one's name? Dr. Rubino. He had asked Dr. Rubino if he had been able to listen to any of the jail calls, and he said no. And I thought that was interesting as well. Yeah. Exactly, Cash. He will die in prison regardless. He is off the streets. He's not able to hurt anyone else outside of prison. Well, hopefully he won't be able to hurt anyone else in prison either, because he will be on death row. He will be on death row. And I hope he is miserable as much as he can be. Yeah, that's true too, Coddle. Doesn't look like he beats around the bush either. Yeah, straightforward, to the point. Yep. A lot cheaper to send them to general population. Oh, Peaches. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that. Well, thanks everybody for being here today. It's been a long day. A lot of hearings, a lot of time sitting. And, you know, I had said at the beginning of the live, I don't know how people sit for hours on end, especially with trial coverage or even just sitting in general, because it's been a long day. It's been a long day. So I am going to put a short together, just summing up everything from today. And then tomorrow we have Wordsy Wednesday at, I believe I scheduled it for 7 p.m. Eastern. And then that's all I have scheduled for now. I'm not sure if I'm going to go live the rest of the week. I'm guessing I will, but definitely make sure you have your notifications on. If you haven't subbed, I would appreciate if you did. And if you haven't hit that like button, I would also appreciate that. Chopper, I don't think so. I don't think so. I did a short on Sarah Boone, but that case really bothers me. And I think it's because she videotaped, like, knowing what George was going through. I don't think I can stomach it. I'll probably, you know, watch news clips, just, you know, summaries, but that she needs to receive the death penalty too, because what she did was especially heinous and cruel. Especially. It's, yeah. I'll probably watch Lawyer You Know, or I don't know if Emily Baker will cover it, but I'll probably just follow one of them and listen to their commentary. The trial that I had seen just before the live is about a 15-year-old girl who killed her mom and nearly killed her dad. Her dad survived. She was offered a plea deal today of 40 years in prison. She declined the plea deal. So her trial is set to start September 16th, where she can be sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. So, I mean, being 15, I'm guessing that's probably, I don't know. I mean, you get 40 years, she'd be out when she's 55, or you gamble with 20 to life. She may never get out. So that is one that I'm looking at. So that's, oh, thank you, Casual. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Chopper, I think her being pro se is, she is such a bee. Her facial expressions, she gets very like ornery with the judge. And it's like, if you weren't such a jerk, Sarah Boone, you probably would have been convicted already or acquitted, one or the other. And you would have a lawyer to help you. But you can't handle other people. So now you get to represent yourself. So that's what I find somewhat fascinating, is the fact that she's going to now have to represent herself, which, seeing what I've seen so far, I mean, she did win a motion. She did win one of her motions, which was pretty impressive, but it's probably going to be, I don't know. The videos is what I can't do it knowing what she did. Oh yeah, Cash. She's guilty as F. I agree. Casual, I agree. Definitely worse than Wade. I mean, they both, all victims, and between both of them, all of the victims suffered horribly. They knew they were going to die. And I feel like that in itself is the most terrifying. Like, they knew what was going to happen. Chopper, that's a good question. I don't know either. Let's see. Sarah Boone. Okay, so this article from News Nation. Here, let me share this quick. I don't know if this is going to say it, but the title of this is What We Know About the Trial of Sarah Boone, Accused Suitcase Killer. Attorney changes have caused several delays. George Torres Jr. was found deceased inside the suitcase. Sarah Boone may have battered spouse defense. Well, I don't believe that, but let's see. So that just kind of, and again, this is an old article. When is this from? Oh, July 29th. So a month ago. But then, so this must be, okay, so it was updated July 29th. So her trial was supposed to start May 13th, which it didn't. I mean, this has been going on for years as well. Let's see. She's gone through at least 8 attorneys in the past 4 years, and she is now representing herself because she can't work well with others. It talks about the delays. So her possible defense is battered spouse defense. Oh, and that's it. So I didn't see anything about the death penalty. Second-degree murder. So let's see, second degree. Okay, so she is not up for the death penalty based on the law. So it says second degree murder is a first degree felony that can result in a sentence of 10 to 30 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. The minimum sentence depends on whether a firearm was used and the defendant's criminal history. She didn't have a firearm, so that I know of. Aggravating factors, the minimum sentence can increase if other factors are present, such as using a firearm or if the defendant has a criminal history. I'm sorry, I forgot to make this bigger. Maximum sentence is life in, so it says maximum sentence is life in prison without parole for adults and life with parole after 15 or 25 years for juveniles. The prosecution can also request a lifetime sentence. Okay, so I don't know why they said on the top 10 to 30 years. I was hoping I could find the actual statute, but these are just lawyers. Yeah, that's the same thing. So I'm not sure. But she's been in jail for almost 5 years now. So, I mean, I'm guessing they would credit her for that time. So, I mean, in my opinion, she took a life. She should get at least life in prison. But that's just me. That's just me. Hey, Wise Angel, how are you? I haven't followed the Jen Soto. I've heard some things but I don't know enough to comment. I haven't followed that. Yeah, all her letters to the judge. Oh my gosh. That was the one hearing I saw was her complaining about, by the time I write a letter and then it has to go through and then it has to go here and then it has to go there. And then by the time you get it, time's up or something like that. Yeah, I green casual. It's going to be painful. I saw the videos and I can't cover it. I can't. Yeah, exactly. She murdered him. Guilty. The end. Yeah, and I agree, Cash, not battered spouse syndrome. Or what was it? Battered spouse defense. Got it, Chopper. DP is only capital charges. That's what I thought, because second degree is usually not death penalty. Oh my gosh, Taylor Shabusiness. I agree, she should have gotten the death penalty. She's psycho. She is psycho. Yeah, true, Chopper. I feel like every person who takes someone's life should have their life taken as well. I know that's not the way things work, but I feel that's how things should work. Either life in prison, you don't get to live your life outside these walls, or you are sentenced to death because, eye for an eye. Oh, and thank you, Wise Angel, for being polite in my chat. I appreciate that. All right, everyone. Well, it's been a busy day. I am not going to be live later. I may be around these YouTube streets, but I am going to go get some things done that I wasn't able to do just, because I've been online way more than I have ever, I think, for this. And I go back to work next week, so I will only be doing lives after work. No lives during the day, which, it's good to get back into a routine. And I just want to look at chat real quick. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, night, morning. Don't forget to hit that like on your way out if you haven't already. And if you haven't subbed up, I would very much appreciate if you do. So have a great rest of your day. And until next time, I will see you all on the flip side.
Let it take me to that place now. I won't ever let my thoughts get away now. I got better things to do, picking fate now. I just wanna be the best, call me great now. I don't know if I'm okay or insane now. I remember better days on the playground, hoping I can find my way to even when I'm feeling down. I fight, even when I don't know what is right. I'ma pick a side and I'ma take pride. I will decide my fate and I will never let them tell me who I am. If you try to shake me, I'll be damned. Planet on the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside. I'm alone, I'm alright. It's so cold outside. I'm alone.